tonight, Vijitha Herath, Member of Parliament and representing the National People's Power. A very good evening, Mr. Herath, and thank you for joining me.
Good evening. Thank you very much for inviting this important program.
Certainly. So let's get the ball rolling, first of all, with Budget 2024, Mr. Herath. We know many things have been said, many things have been opposed, criticized and so on. What is your prognosis of Budget 2024?
2024 budget has finished. At the very beginning of the budget introduced, most of our people hoped there were so many good things within the budget, but unfortunately there were not good things. All are bad things,
Right.
except only few, 2-3 things.
Proposals.
Actually, this budget was prepared according to the IMF conditions. The IMF has proposed to Sri Lankan government
Right.
increase taxes and privatizing and restructuring. They use that word restructure.
Yes.
Restructuring government on institutions, and they said that flexible exchange rate, and lastly they said that the prices of power and energy,
Yes.
that's a cost recovery formula. And fifth condition was fight against corruption.
Yes.
Except that condition, all other 4 conditions were done by the government. That's why the government took a decision to increase tax and tax, especially the VAT.
Yes.
As far as concerned the VAT percentage, it is unreasonable. The people cannot bear it up. It has increased 18%.
Yes.
All commodities and services will increase after 1st of January. The government has imposed that VAT tax on food items and some other manufacturing raw materials, and not only that, so many services also. Especially the petrol and diesel. And
More than 90 goods and services that were exempt from VAT have now been included in the VAT list.
Yes, this is it has happened the first time in the history. Actually, if we consider the petrol, there is no any value-added
Yes.
process, but government has introduced VAT tax also to petrol and diesel.
Yes.
We import directly from Singapore or Dubai, diesel and petrol. There is no any value-added process in our country.
Yes.
But they imposed that tax.
A value-added tax.
According to all those tax, after 1st of January, people will face so many economic difficulties. Though the president and government ministers said that there are so many reliefs, but what are those reliefs? They try to give some small amount to government servants. That will also give after April 10,000 rupees.
Yes.
It is not enough. According to the census department, they said that the one family, including the 4 members of the one family, need 74,000 rupees per month. Then most of school teachers and principals are below that amount. Therefore, people will face so many difficulties after 1st of January.
Staying on the topic of taxes, Mr. Herath, value-added tax and personal income tax, these were introduced in no time by the government last year and this year as well.
Yeah.
But in a country where the people are already burdened by the rising cost of living and commodities increasing and so on, is it reasonable for the government to increase taxes such as value-added tax, whereas shouldn't they be exploring other avenues of revenue generation, mainly maybe to finding corporate taxes that haven't been paid, trying to recover taxes amounting to billions at points where they haven't recovered from corporate entities and so on? Why isn't the government exploring those avenues to generate revenue for the state, Mr. Herath?
The President has already said to the public his idea was to increase the direct taxes and reduce the indirect taxes.
Yes.
He personally mentioned that direct taxes percentage is 20% and indirect tax percentage is 80%. It is not reasonable. Therefore, as a government, we are going to change that composition.
Yeah.
But in practice, that does not happen. Though
The flip side of it is happening.
That's right. The opposite side was happen. They have not increased corporate tax and other direct taxes. Only increased the indirect taxes. That's why it is not reasonable. The majority of people are facing the indirect tax, imposing the indirect tax. The other thing is the government must introduce some type of tax. That is the way how the ruling party control the economy.
Yes.
But that must be reasonable, and the people cannot bear it up. But the government must take action to increase the gross production of our country.
Yes.
GDP. The imposing tax directly as the imposing tax is basically can be happen in the economy. The whole cost of production will be increased.
Yes, definitely.
After increasing of the cost of production, the people's buying power will be decreased.
Yes.
Then what will happen in the future? The production will collapse. The result of the collapse of production, our total GDP will collapse. That is the bad effect to our economy. As a wise government, the government must take action to increase the GDP.
Yes.
Without increasing our domestic production, we cannot overcome these economic challenges. But unfortunately, all those governments which were ruling all governments in our country try to impose taxes and obtaining some loan from outside. That is their strategy.
Yes.
Not to take any action to increase our
Local production.
They impose so many taxes to raw material. Then automatically our cost of production will increase. As a result of that, our GDP will collapse. That will directly affect to our economic production.
Right. So, Mr. Herath, at the onset of our program, you mentioned that the IMF had listed out a bunch of conditions for the government. One such condition was reforms in the energy sector and also to introduce a cost-reflective formula for pricing in the energy sector. And another one was corruption. And Sri Lanka became the first country in Asia that the governance diagnostic tool was used by the IMF to identify fragilities in governance and corruption vulnerabilities. Let's first touch on Sri Lanka's energy sector. We witnessed something on Saturday where Sri Lanka was in the dark for more than 6 to 7 hours, but it has now been officially confirmed that that was a technical malfunction. But given the developments in this arena, Mr. Herath, do you believe Sri Lanka is slowly losing grip of its energy sovereignty?
Yes, it is rapidly losing our energy sovereignty. Power and energy is a main item of our national economy. If we lose our sovereignty in that sector, we have to depend on outside countries. Today we are facing that issue. We have to depend on China and we have to depend on India. You mentioned that there were so many bribes and corruptions will happen. Actually, in that sector, so many fraud and corruption incidents will happen. Recently, there was a day before yesterday. There was a debate in Parliament also.
Right.
Our leader Andrew Kumar Disanayak questioned from President.
Yes.
And replied the Power and Energy Minister
about the solar power plant.
Solar power plants. Our leader questioned repeatedly, was there a tender procedure?
Right.
But Energy Minister did not reply that question. He explained various things. There was a procurement system and so blah blah blah.
And the cost is high because there is a battery storage unit.
Battery storage. He asked. Andrew Kumar Disanayak said that if we consider the coal power energy, we spent only 22 rupees.
Yes.
And solar power energy, we have to spend 50 rupees.
50 rupees, yes.
It is too high.
Yes.
Why are we going that way? And Minister said that so many things, but he did not mention they followed tender procedure.
Right.
That is our question. That is
the due process followed in the awarding of these particular tenders.
That's right. Even the government can use tender procedure within India also.
Yes.
There was no any tender procedure even in within India. They chose Adani company was the only one company.
The sole company.
Sole company. And we are using submitting a cabinet paper to the cabinet and passed it to give the Adani company that projects. There are 5 projects, and without any tender procedure and transparency procedure, the government has given that projects to Adani company. It is we cannot accept that. And the Adani company sell their solar power energy within India lower than our country's prices. We obtain 15 cents dollars per 1 unit, but Adani sell in India 8 cents.
So that's around 15 rupees in Sri Lanka.
How can we accept that? There is a fraud behind that. That is the system we are following as a government. I think it is that those types of transactions were happened in the past also. Now also it is happening. That's why we are criticizing, and it is badly affect to our economy in future.
Right.
Severely affect.
Certainly. So again, we are bordering on fraud and corruption even in the energy sector, as you rightfully mentioned. Let's talk about fraud and corruption. The JVP and later the NPP has been a very, very vociferous force when it comes to fraud and corruption in Sri Lanka. You have campaigned to eliminate fraud and corruption, to make sure that it does not perpetuate, and one of the key themes that the NPP has put forward is that you will end fraud and corruption in the country and then develop it. However, fraud and corruption, like I mentioned earlier, is not the only factor that we must develop for Sri Lanka to move forward. There are so many other angles and aspects that we must consider. For instance, our foreign policy, our foreign investment opportunities, how we are going to open up to the world. We have to address brain drain, because you speak of handing over positions based on merit. But if we do not have capable individuals that are able to run this country in the country, instead they have emigrated elsewhere, how are we going to find people in the future to hold positions of power, to make the right decisions to take the country forward? So what is the NPP's plans on these aspects, Mr. Herath? Foreign policy, foreign investment, brain drain, and so on. Tell me.
As you mentioned, the fraud and corruption is not only only one reason to collapse the economy, but it is it is one reason, and we think half of collapse of our economy
can be attributed to fraud and corruption.
Fraud and corruption.
Right.
And 50% of the economy
Okay.
collapsed. And other 50% basically based on the collapse of our domestic production.
Yes.
That's why we have to change that situation. First of all, we have to change this corrupt and polluted political culture.
Right.
Without changing this political culture, we cannot build up our economy. That is our first target. Within 6-month period, we will try to change that system, introducing new constitution and
Right.
introducing new laws and regulations and imposing that. There are so many laws and regulations
In
are
the
there.
country, yes.
The problem is the
They are not
government
being
is not
exercised.
doing exercising that. That is the thing. Therefore, our target is change the political bad corrupted political situation first of all.
Okay.
Then secondly, we can increase our domestic production.
Right.
First period, within a 1 or 2 year period, we can increase our micro, small and medium
SMEs.
Within 2 year period,
Yeah.
we can increase that sector. And the midterm, we can pay our attention to the middle industrial area. And the final stage, we will pay our attention to the large investments and large industrial areas. As far as concerned our foreign policy, we are having diplomatic relations with all countries, not only the Western countries, but also the Eastern countries.
Okay.
Some people are trying to say that NPP is only with Cuba, China and North Korea. That is totally incorrect.
Right.
We are with America, India, China, Russia and all other European Western countries and also Cuba and Russia and
More
all other
socialism inclined countries, yeah.
Because as a country, we cannot
Isolate
continue
ourselves.
our economic and political activities without diplomatic relations with other countries.
So you do not believe in isolationism,
Yeah.
but diplomacy with certain restraints.
That's right. Our foreign policy is 50-50, win-win policy.
Okay.
That is the Bandung policy. Bandung summit has taken a decision. If there is a investment from one country to another country, that's a reasonable method is win-win policy.
Okay.
We are following that. Without bribes and corruption, we can transparently doing our foreign investments. We are open to all foreign investments. We need capital, we need technology.
Right.
We have our own land and natural resources. We have that part, but we have no capital and technology.
Yes.
We must bring
That
from
know-how
somewhere
from elsewhere.
else.
Right.
We are open to that. The only thing is there are no any corruption and bribes and frauds.
Right.
And transparency method is there, open tender method is there. We follow the international tender procedure also.
Right.
Then all those types of high level foreign investments will come to Sri Lanka. Now they are not willing to come here. What is the reason? Fraud and corruption.
Right.
The minister, relevant minister, tried to obtain some amount of money.
Yes.
And the officers, some extent of officers also try to obtain some advantage from that investor. Because of that reason, investors do not like to come Sri Lanka.
Right.
As far as concerned the brain drain, why people are going out? Why youth, the intellectuals and youth are trying to go out? Because of the collapse of our economy and social situation. If we build our country in the real path, the people don't go out.
Right.
And automatically they will try to stay here and continue their jobs here.
Right.
That is our target. And there are, I think, 3 million people are working various countries in the world. The most of them are working in the Middle East, and intellectuals and some professionals are working
in the European and other American countries. Yes.
They try to come back to Sri Lanka. If there will be a good and hopeful country in our land, they will sure try to come with their money,
with their wealth.
Yes, because they have earned so many things during last decades. They try to invest here.
Right.
This is Sri Lanka is their motherland. Their heart is with Sri Lanka,
right,
not in America or Australia. Though they are living those countries, their parents, their relatives, their friends are here, and their motherland is Sri Lanka.
Yes.
Therefore, if we can build up our country in real path, they will surely come back, and that is the solution to the brain drain.
Right. Let's talk about public sector inefficiencies. We know that Sri Lanka's public sector is bloated and it needs to be reformed and cut down and made efficient in order for Sri Lanka to develop. Once more, another key problem that has been plaguing Sri Lanka for too long. Where does the NPP stand with these sort of reforms, especially if you say that privatization is not the way to go and state-owned enterprises should be nationalized and remain within the scope of the government? How do you trim down on a bloated public sector and also address the inefficiencies and the fragilities in state-owned enterprises, Mr. Herath?
Yes, our policy is not based on only doing all businesses by the government.
Right.
There are some sectors we can give chance to the private sector.
Right.
For example, the hotel. The hotel can be run by the private sector. It must not be run by the government. It is not necessary.
So the government will act as the facilitator.
Yeah, yeah. The government is the duty of the government is to prepare the national policy and implement.
Okay.
Then private sector can join the economy. With the participation of the public sector and private sector, we can improve our economy. That is our principle. But some areas, for example, you mentioned the power and energy.
Yes.
Power and according to our policy, power and energy and finance sector must be run by the government,
within the control of
the government, because otherwise our sovereignty will face so many risks.
Right.
The outside countries, outside company can control our national economy. It is also a risk to our national security also.
Right.
Within 1 minute they can switch off.
The switchboard will be elsewhere.
Yes, the Adani company can switch off
power to the country.
Then the whole population will be in the dark.
Right.
Therefore, we think the finances sector and the power and energy sector must be run by the government. And other sectors we can discuss, and we can have a dialogue with other parties. For example, the education. Some people have a wrong perception about that. They think that after becoming the NPP power, the education sector will be
completely nationalized, and you won't allow foreign universities to come to Sri Lanka.
That is not correct. Because we are giving so many facilities to the government sector.
Right.
And we will allocate 6% of GDP to the our education sector. And step by step, we will strengthening the public education, government education.
But you won't shut out private universities from entering the country, is it?
Within 1 second, we cannot do that.
Right.
It is because it is not like a boutique.
Yes.
If we close down that boutique, what will happen to the children? They will face. We will. That students will face so many difficulties. Their future will end. Because of that reason, we will not do that. The private education is there, but the government's duty and responsibility is strengthening the state education sector.
Okay.
That is our policy. the private education is also there. Gradually, step by step, the people and students will understand why we are going to private education. There is a good and enough facilities are there in the government sector. Automatically, government sector will strengthen and the private sector will weaken. That is our policy.
Okay, so more often than not, when it comes to the education sector, why a lot of people choose private education nowadays is because there are very limited vacancies at state universities, and that is something that I believe you need to address as well, Mr. Herath. Before you say that private sector will be phased out slowly, don't you think that you should be paying attention to expanding the scope of state universities and increasing the facilities within those universities and addressing those issues before phasing out private universities and so on?
Yeah, that's correct. We are giving so many facilities to the state universities and schools. Why the child want to go to the tuition class? Because of
the school
the
is
lack
not
of
being taught well.
facilities in this school.
Yes.
If there are enough facilities in the school, that child need not to go to the private classes.
Right.
The same method will be applied to the universities. There are no enough professors, lecturers. The president is going to start the new university, but the Sabaragamu medical faculty students are facing a big issue. They have not professional professors unit in that university.
Right.
Without professors unit, how can they continue their degree? It is a problem. But the president is try to say that we will start a new universities. Starting new university is good. We are not opposing that. But before that, we have to do many things. I wanted to say our stand is strengthening state education
sector.
And there are many opportunities who like to go to the private school or private university. There are some opportunities.
Right. Okay. So, Mr. Herath, unfortunately, we are running out of time on today's show, but I must ask you this question. The NPP has come forward as a force that the people can think of as an alternative to the traditional political parties that have governed the country. But we have seen many false dawns, Mr. Herath, from 2015 and then 2019 and even way before, where the people thought, okay, finally Sri Lanka will be in a good place. But that has not been the case. We have gone from disaster to disaster. Very quickly, can you explain to the people what the NPP will be distinguished from the other political parties that promised many things to Sri Lankans but did not deliver? In past years, in 2015 and all other years, the people believed, at that time we were JVP. Right.
JVP's principle is okay, their program is okay, they are genuine, but they cannot win. But today that situation has totally changed. We can win. The people have faith on that. We have formed a broad alliance, that is the National People's Alliance, NPP, with the participation of professionals and intellectuals and so many progressive groups. The NPP can win the next election. According to the Constitution, there must be a presidential election within 17th of September, from 17th of September to 17th of October, that within that period, according to the Constitution, the presidential election must be held. The president cannot abolish that, cannot postpone it. Therefore, there will be a presidential election in next year. We are ready for that. We appeal to the people, please join with us. We are doing many good things on behalf of our Sri Lankan people. Our policy is based on behalf of the people of our country.
Okay. So their policies, the NPP's policies, are based on the people of the country, and they are confident that they can take Sri Lanka to greater heights if they are given power at upcoming elections. Our guest tonight was Vijitha Herath, Member of Parliament representing the National People's Power. Thank you very much, Mr. Herath, for joining me
Thank you
tonight.
very much.
And that's the way it was on Face to Face tonight. Take care and good night.